Over the past few weeks, controversy has continued to build on the Chinese internet around the so-called soft banning of a blogger known as Chigua Mengzhu. On the surface, this looks like nothing more than an individual content creator facing platform moderation. But in reality, what ignited public debate was not the ban itself. What truly set off the backlash was something else entirely: the sharply contrasting historical judgments she gave regarding the Qing Dynasty and the Ming Dynasty. And it was at that point that emotions exploded. Some were furious, accusing her of whitewashing the Qing Dynasty. Others applauded her, claiming she was breaking historical myths. And still others seized the moment to push the discussion far beyond history into identity politics and ideological confrontation. But that leads us to a more fundamental question: how should the Qing Dynasty actually be evaluated? And what, precisely, is the Chinese government's official stance on its historical role? In an environment dominated by emotional polarization, endlessly scrolling short videos or watching self-media accounts attack each other offers very little clarity. Instead, it makes far more sense to return to a more stable and authoritative reference point: China's official historical narrative. The 2019 People's Daily editorial in January 2019. At a critical stage when the draft of major Qing History Research results was nearing review, People's Daily published a heavyweight editorial titled, "We must firmly grasp the initiative in Qing History Research." This article was not a response to online controversy. Rather, it was a systematic discussion of academic direction, discourse authority, and the real-world significance of Qing history research. And within this editorial, after fully acknowledging the Qing Dynasty's governance experience, People's Daily offered a remarkably concise but weighty conclusion. Compared with other feudal dynasties in Chinese history, the Qing rulers demonstrated relatively outstanding capabilities in governing the state. At first glance, the wording appears restrained, but its significance is substantial, because this was neither emotional rhetoric nor a political slogan. It was a holistic evaluation of nearly 3 centuries of governance. In other words, it was an official acknowledgement of a basic fact: the Qing Dynasty is not a historical period that can simply be dismissed or erased. The editorial went on to emphasize that the Qing was the final dynasty of China's feudal autocratic system, and that Qing history constitutes an essential component of the historical memory of the Chinese nation. Its legacy, both material and spiritual, has long been absorbed by the Chinese people. In some cases, it has even become part of the national cultural bloodstream, profoundly shaping China's modern historical trajectory. So what does this mean? It means you are free to criticize the Qing Dynasty. You can analyze its failures. You can reflect on its limitations, but you cannot bypass it, because without the Qing Dynasty, it is impossible to understand how modern China came to possess its current state structure, territorial boundaries, and ethnic configuration. The editorial also stressed that the Qing period left behind both valuable governance experience and serious historical lessons, both of which merit in-depth study today. Rebuilding order after the Ming-Qing transition. Following the dynastic transition from Ming to Qing, Qing rulers rapidly reconstructed political order by absorbing and adapting Ming institutional frameworks. They re-established orthodox Confucianism as the ideological core guiding state governance. The results were concrete, not theoretical. In a relatively short period, the Qing state achieved national reunification, restored social order, and sustained a unified political structure for an extended historical era. This is not a value judgment, it is a historical outcome. And that outcome was not accidental. It rested on a highly centralized yet deeply institutionalized governance system. A decision-making structure centered on the Grand Secretariat, the Southern Study, and later the Grand Council. A bureaucratic system supported by the imperial examination system. strict anti-corruption measures, and integrity allowances. Tax reforms such as the head tax merged into land tax system, and pragmatic, situation-specific policies toward frontier regions, ethnic affairs, and religious governance. Together, these formed the real foundations of Qing governance, the Qing Dynasty and modern China's territory. First, one fact must be confronted directly. The Qing Dynasty was a foundational architect of modern China's territorial boundaries. During its early period, through more than a century of military campaigns and political integration, the Qing gradually brought Xinjiang, Tibet, Mongolia, and other regions under effective governance. What it established was a unified system of rule under central authority, provincial administration, banner systems, imperial residence in Tibet, and the Tusi system operated in parallel. A nationwide legal framework centered on the Great Qing Code was enforced. Appointments of local officials remained firmly under central control. This governance logic exerted a profound influence on China's later state structure. People's Daily stated this point unequivocally. The Qing dynasty laid the foundation for China's present territorial boundaries. Yet in recent years, some voices have increasingly denied this basic historical reality. They claim that ancient China had no borders, or that modern China's territory was entirely reconquered from scratch. These arguments may sound emotionally charged, but they collapse under logical scrutiny. If territory has no historical continuity, if inheritance is meaningless, then why not reclaim the Korean Peninsula? Why not reclaim Southeast Asia? At its core, this line of thinking exploits raw patriotic emotion to sever the historical and legal continuity between Qing history and contemporary Chinese sovereignty. More dangerously, it inadvertently provides rhetorical space for narratives such as Yuan and Qing were not China, or the Manchus were foreign colonizers, thereby undermining the historical foundations of national identity. A multi-ethnic national community. The second unavoidable reality is this. The Qing dynasty played a crucial role in shaping China as a multi-ethnic national community. Claims such as Manchu colonial rule or cultural rupture do not align with historical evidence. Qing rulers repeatedly emphasized political concepts such as Manchu and Han as one body, and all under heaven as one family. The Shangzi Emperor articulated it, the Kangxi Emperor practiced it, and the Yongzheng Emperor explicitly rejected ethnic-based legitimacy in Dai Zhuemilu. Spiritually, the worship of Guan Yu became a shared cultural symbol across ethnic groups. Institutionally, the Li Fangyuan handled ethnic and frontier affairs. Socially, intermarriage, migration, and integration continued over generations. This process was not without tension, but the dominant trajectory was integration, not division, institutional centralization and governance capacity. Third, the Qing dynasty pushed centralized governance to a highly refined level. The Grand Council increased decision-making efficiency. The memorial system shortened the distance between the emperor and local administration. The secret succession system reduced systemic risks during power transitions. In finance, tax reforms eased grassroots burdens. In law, the Great Qing Code provided long-term legal stability. In information flow, nationwide courier systems ensured administrative reach. This institutional architecture allowed the Qing state to operate a vast, complex polity over an extended period. The prosperity of the Qing Shiyong-Zheng Qianlong era. Fourth, the prosperity of the High Qing period was not a myth. Over 130 years of relative peace, a population exceeding 300 million, and the formation of a nationwide market. Different ethnic groups interacted through mobility and exchange, reshaping cultural structures through integration. Despite severe problems in its later years, the stability created during the Qing's early and middle periods undeniably provided favorable conditions for pre-modern economic development. failure to transform and historical legacy. Of course, the Qing Dynasty ultimately failed to complete institutional transformation, facing what was later described as changes unseen in 3,000 years. Reform efforts remained constrained by the framework of China's essence, Western utility. Opportunities were missed. Yet even so, historical actions such as Zhuo Zongtang's reconquest of Xinjiang, Li Zhang's patrols of the South China Sea Islands, and Jiao Erfeng's actions in Tibet remain critical pillars of modern Chinese sovereignty. In the end, the Qing Dynasty was swept away by history. But failure does not mean worthlessness, and collapse does not justify emotional liquidation. The core message, the central reminder of that people's daily editorial is clear. Qing history must be studied objectively, comprehensively, and rationally, because when society loses rationality toward history, the price will ultimately be paid not by the past but by the present.